And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Donald Trump finally discussing policy today as he announces details of his tax plan. And now the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, has announced that he is retiring at the end of the month. One question remains. Who will replace him? Making another question. Louis Gohmert, where are you? And with the papal visit now over, many pundits are arguing over whether or not Pope Francis was too political. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the Wrap, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host Rick Unger, who raised his hand when it comes to who will replace John Boehner.
I'm the next Speaker of the House. Did you know that the Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of Congress?
That's true. The Constitution says that's not needed.
I'm putting my name in for the gig.
Interesting. So a Democrat replacing Boehner, who many people probably think you're to the right of Boehner.
But I'm such a fair guy. How could they say no?
That's a very good point. Yes, and you do like to speak.
And
you do own a house. Several of them, as a matter of fact. So that makes sense. To the Speaker's right, Forbes.com columnist and an Emmy winner. He is Bill Tucker.
This is a much better seat than I thought it was.
Yeah, you're in the Heather seat.
Exactly.
And
you're moving up in the world,
and I'm next to the Speaker, too.
You're moving up.
You're the, what would that make you then?
The House Whip.
Okay. Just prefer number 2. We just go all Austin Powers. Anyway, and to his right, the House Whips, that is. He's the assistant online editor for Commentary Magazine. Noah Rothman is back and smiling once again.
That's
all
a big
right,
smile
let's get right to the Daily Download.
You love hearing about yourself.
I do.
It is oxygen to you. What does that tell us about Donald Trump?
No, if I'm on a show, I'll turn on the show, but I don't think I'm any different than anybody else. If
I
somebody's...
was in your office, all the magazines on your desk
Well, I have a lot of covers.
Are covers of you.
I think I have
all
more
the pictures
covers
on the wall are pictures of you.
It's cheaper than wallpaper.
What are we supposed to take from that?
You know, look, I'm on a lot of covers. I think maybe more than almost any supermodel. I think more than any supermodel. But in a way, that's a sign of respect.
That was, of course, we even have to tell you, GOP frontrunner Donald Trump on 60 Minutes last night. Can we go back, control room, to the shot of his desk real quick? Because I saw, yes,
there it is.
There it is, Newsmax magazine.
How many copies did he buy?
Less than 100.
Less than 100.
Yeah, that's pretty
stacked
stacked up.
Least he could do is buy 1,000 copies.
Look at that. We're right in the middle, too. That's not like one of those off to the side kind of thing. That's the one you reach for first if we're looking at
right above the Economist. Come on.
Well, of course.
As well we should be.
That's big, big news. And he mentioned this in a press conference last week as well.
Oh,
Newsmax. So that's,
It's working for him. He's here to stay.
And it's working for us, too. So anyway, Mr. Trump may be on the cover of a lot of magazines, but for the first time this campaign season, he is only ahead by 1 point. This, according to the latest NBC News, Wall Street Journal poll, Trump and Dr. Ben Carson are practically tied for first place. Trump 21, Carson 20. Marco Rubio, Carly Fiorina tied for third with 11%. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush still struggling, only coming in with 7%. John Kasich not listed, right behind at 6%. Shouldn't say 17, that should say 7. And then Kasich is only 1 point off. That's significant because people see kind of a race between Bush and Kasich and themselves. Anyway, critics of Trump say he's all talk, sizzle, no steak, as it were. That there really is no plan for achieving his campaign promises. Scott Pelley got down to business with the presidential hopeful, asking him about his tax plan.
You say you're going to lower taxes on the middle class. What are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about numbers that will be announced over the next 2 days, and they'll be significant for the middle class.
Do you know what the numbers are?
I know them right now.
Well, why don't you tell me? This won't be on the air for a couple more days.
I know, but if I do that, I'm going to have to, I'm probably talking about the beginning of next week, and I would give them to you, but I will have a riot if I do. There'll be a riot. Everybody wants this plan. Everybody wants to see it.
Still lacking confidence. Everybody. So that was not good enough, however, for Mr. Pelley.
This is 60 Minutes.
I know.
It's time to tell the folks at home the details of what you intend to do.
I will say this. There will be a large segment of our country that will have a zero rate. And that's something I haven't told anybody.
The tax cut for the middle class is going to be what?
It'll be significant.
Yes, but what?
I can't tell you.
Why can't you tell me?
Because I just don't want to now.
It's time.
I know.
This is 60 Minutes.
But it's going to be out over the next week, and I think it's going to be very exciting for people.
Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third. That was just ping pong, back and forth.
That was a conversation between every reporter and their source that goes on every day, multiple times, all the time.
Yeah. So, well, as promised, Donald Trump did lay out the details of his plan this morning at Trump Tower here in New York.
We're going to cut the individual rates from 7 brackets to 4. Simplification. 25%, 20%, 10%, 0. If you're single and earn less than $25,000 per year, or married and jointly and $50,000. So, very important. If you're single and earn less than $25,000, or married and jointly earn less than $50,000, you'll not pay any income tax. Nothing. No business of any size, from a Fortune 500 company to a mom-and-pop shop to a freelancer living from gig to gig, will pay more than 15% of their business income in taxes.
Okay. Let me get this straight. If you're single and you make less than $25,000, no taxes, where were you in 1996?
No, you weren't paying much anyhow.
I know, but still, 0.0 I could have been paying. Is this plan achievable, Ricky?
You know, it remains to be seen if it's achievable, because we have to see the numbers worked out by some independent, sources. However, it is credible. I will say that. It is a credible plan. There are some problems with it that I think will bother some people in his party. For instance, as you're kind of pointing out, there are people in the Republican Party who have an allergic reaction to the idea of an American not paying something in federal income taxes. So we'll see how that plays out. Not as much, actually. Not as much, because they tend to vote for Democrats, those people. Now where he is going to run into some trouble, I think, is as you get deeper into his plan, he does get rid of the death tax, the estate tax.
Yeah.
And while he has said that his plan will cost him personally a lot of money in taxes, we'll see if that's true. He's going to save gazillions, or his kids are, when he passes away, because he will be a major beneficiary of doing away with the estate tax.
Do you think, just can I hold you on that?
Yeah.
That they could play that card on Trump that, well, he's just going ahead with this plan because it benefits his rich buddies?
Absolutely. Well, it benefits
I don't think people buy that with him.
It benefits him.
I get it. I get it. But you know how you could sell it with a Romney? I think with Trump, he comes across as such a populist, as such
maybe we'll
the
see.
billionaire
It
who's
remains
the man.
To be seen, and it remains to be seen how the numbers work out. If in fact it is, he claims that it'll be neutral in 3 years. In the first 2 years, it might cost us a little bit. In the third year, it'll be revenue neutral, and then beyond that, he says we'll start to come out on the plus side.
Okay.
So as I say, first glance, credible, not crazy, but we'll see.
Bill?
I like the death tax going away. I think the estate tax should go away. And I live in New Jersey, and it is not just the rich people that get hit by this. Farmers get hit by this out in New Jersey, and when they die, they have to break up their farms because they get killed. So I'm in favor of that part. It's funny, I'm not allergic to the no tax, but it does give me a little bit of an itch, because I think that some people ought to have some skin in the game. And I don't think below $25,000 it ought to be much skin, mind you, but they got to have some.
Now, no, this is his strength, right? Trump's, that for all the fanfare and all the bluster, that this should be where he really shines. Do you think that he did a good job today?
He did a fair job. We all go after Donald Trump for being rather substanceless, and he actually engaged in a little bit of substantive commentary and policy analysis, and good for him. We're not going to hit him on that. Kevin Williamson over at National Review had a good observation when he noticed that this is very conspicuously similar to Jeb Bush's tax plan insofar as it reduces rates, simplifies the tax code, etc. I wonder whether or not that comparison is going to come up because his supporters are so allergic to Jeb Bush.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting on that level, no question about it. Well, another candidate has a tax plan that he wants you to know about, and that is a candidate for Governor John Kasich, thank you, he said, of Ohio. He sat down with our own J.D. Hayworth to talk about it.
First of all, I want to do what I think is possible within the first 120 days. I think it is possible, J.D., to get those corporate profits that are stuck in Europe back to America. Let them come home. Don't double tax companies. That'd be a big stimulus plan package. Secondly, depreciation and expensing, writing off equipment will help our workers be more productive.
So, to see more of the interview with the Ohio governor, be sure to turn to Newsmax Prime tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Coming up next, Speaker Boehner made the rounds on the Sunday talk show circuit. We'll tell you what he had to say about his retirement impending after the break.
You'll be back in Statuary Hall for the unveiling of your portrait. And what do you want them to say about you at that ceremony?
He was a good man.
That's it.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so goes the beginning of the ending of John Boehner's term as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, the Speaker wasted no time calling out his opponents during his appearance on yesterday's Face the Nation on CBS, highlighting those Republicans who he termed false prophets.
Is Ted Cruz a false prophet?
Listen, you can pick a lot of names out. I'll let you choose them.
You don't debate that assertion?
I'll refer you to my remark at a fundraiser I made in August in Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
Well, at that speech, he did refer to Senator Cruz as a jackass, I believe. So there you have it. I don't know if that equates to false prophet or not. So were the members of the Freedom Caucus, with an assist from their meddling friends in the Senate, Senator Cruz, responsible for ending John Boehner's long career in the House of Representatives, or something else at work, Joe Concha?
Yes, they are absolutely responsible for taking down Boehner. And this is 2015, where if you're establishment, you're in big trouble. Yeah. We see that with Trump and Fury and Carson at the top of the polls. You see it with Boehner. You see more tweets out there saying, McConnell, you're next. I heard a great analogy this week, and I think it was Jackie Kucinich on CNN. She said, the Freedom Caucus and the conservatives in the House are like the dog that caught the car. You know, they always chase. They caught the car. Now the test is, can they actually put somebody in there, right, who can be effective or electable in an election?
Well, isn't this the question? So now you got rid of John Boehner. Yippee-yi-yo-tie-yay. The Tea Partiers, the Freedom Caucus, as they're called, they're happy about this, as are some other people. What's the difference going to be, Bill?
Well, look, I would argue that there needs to be a change. I think that first and foremost has to happen. And I amen Joe's point. This is the season for change, clearly.
Yeah.
So,
Noah?
But is there going to be one forthcoming?
I don't think it's going to be any change at all.
Right. I mean, it seems like the contours of what's happening here are going to be between Tom Price and McMorris-Rodgers. And I feel like McMorris-Rodgers really has the inside track as far as being the establishment candidate. She was groomed for this role. Tom Price got a real big boost today from a voice of support from Paul Ryan, which gives him a little bit of credit.
But not
credence
towards
with
the speakership, but towards
the majority leader. The speakership is Kevin McCarthy's. So that's pretty much over.
You think that's a done deal?
I think that's a done deal. The question is whether or not the conservatives get behind somebody who has some conservative bona fides, which would be Tom Price. If Tom Price can ascend to the majority leadership, then they really have a feather in their cap.
So I got to ask you guys this question. Is it just me, or did anybody else find it odd that after decades of trying to bring a sitting pope to the floor of the House, Boehner chooses to announce his resignation smack in the middle of this pope's visit? I don't get that. I really don't.
I don't know if it's odd. I think we saw it in that interview, and we saw it time and again with Boehner. He's a very emotional person who I think that somehow seeing the Pope maybe gave him,
that.
You know what I mean? That gave him the incentive to say, you know what, this is the right time to do it.
Totally understand that.
Something happened with him.
I can absolutely see that there was something the Pope said to him, or just reaching that accomplishment might have said, okay, now's the time to go. But he could have waited until today, or this coming Friday, to make this announcement. It wouldn't have had an impact any different that I can see from doing it on Friday. Why does he come out right in the middle of the Pope's visit and decide that's the day to make the announcement? The reporter in me goes, there's something going on here. There's something I'm missing. No,
don't look at me like I have a theory. I certainly don't. I'm not sure. You saw reports that suggested that there was going to be some insurrection, and they wanted to. There was like unsourced quotes in the press that suggested they wanted to give him the opportunity of having the Pope's visit. But why they let it wait for the weekend, I don't know.
I just don't. Bill, do you see anything here?
No, I don't. Maybe Joe's right. Maybe it's just the emotion of the moment. I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm going to keep my ears, eyes, and nose open to the possibility that there's something lurking there that caused him to do it. I have no theory either on what it is, but I just find it very odd. There were no shortage of Republicans, elected or otherwise, ready to applaud the demise of this speaker.
Just a few minutes ago, Speaker Boehner announced that he will be resigning.
So whatever happened to the days, guys, where when somebody announced their retirement after many, many, many years of service in their job, people showed respect? What, I mean, was...
You know who you sound like right now?
What?
John Kasich, who will be on with J.D. Hayward tonight.
Yeah, he did.
said that
He did
exact
say it.
thing. He's friends with Boehner because obviously
Right.
they're both
They're
from
from
Ohio,
Ohio.
right? But he said, you know, people are cheering. He was more mocking Cruz because Cruz, you know, obviously did an end zone dance thinking that he was completely responsible for it. And said, you know, this guy served. He served well. We grew in the House. We grew in the Senate. And he's a good guy, John Boehner. And the fact that we're dancing on his grave and we're from his own
And
party
he's not even
is
dead.
deplorable.
It's
That's true. He's
very
still breathing.
strange. Noah, did John Boehner fail?
No, he certainly did not. If you an objective assessment of his, and the Wall Street Journal had a really good opinion piece on this. If an objective assessment of his tenure as the House Speaker is full of conservative victories, most appreciably, keeping spending flat, ending earmarks, stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff that conservatives are supposed to want. What they've been told that they want is these magical goals of repealing Obamacare, stuff that they could never accomplish. So the bar was set too high for him.
I agree with that, by the way. I think he's been badly treated, and I think he actually accomplished a lot given the hand he was dealt. We want to know who you think might be the right Republican to take over as the next Speaker of the House. You can let us know at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up next, time to look back at the Pope's visit to America. You don't want to miss this retrospection, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
If globalization seeks to bring all of us together, but to do so respecting each person, each individual person's richness and peculiarity, respecting all peoples and their own distinctives, that globalization is good and makes us all grow and leads to peace.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. While most American politicians did a reasonably good job of keeping the politics out of the Pope's successful visit to the United States, much of the political pundit class were apparently unable to restrain themselves and their need to label the Holy Father as either a liberal, conservative, whatever. While some pundits, including myself, including Rick, most of this panel actually, say who cares if the Pope is liberal or conservative or none of the above because he is a spiritual leader and not a political leader. But still, others just couldn't help themselves.
Let us remember the golden rule.
The Pope is a liberal guy, there's no question about it. But his philosophy is based upon what is good for poor people, not on controversial social issues.
I thought this was pure progressive Catholicism. Most of what he had today sounded very much like progressive Catholicism.
Progressive? Catholicism? Never heard that term before. Anyway, but didn't the Pope say it all when suggesting that we all simply follow one of the oldest rules in one of the oldest books?
Let us remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you.
All right, and so why is the punditocracy so focused on picking apart everything the Pope said and turning this into red versus blue, Democrat versus Republican, Unger?
It was really annoying to me. You know, as you just said, I thought the politicians did a relatively good job while the Pope was here in not going that route, and good for them. It was the pundits, it was the people on TV, it was the people writing newspaper stories who simply could not help themselves, and they really annoyed me. There's nothing wrong with simply celebrating a man who who has an important role in the world, who is dedicated to doing good things on earth. You can just celebrate him for 4 days. You're not going to lose your job, pundits. It's okay. It doesn't have to all be politics, but they just couldn't resist.
Do you think that's now the business model, Bill, that they had so many hours to fill, right?
Yep.
And half the time they would just have to 10 minutes, 20 minutes. So you can't just talk about the Bible or the Ten Commandments, so you have to come up with controversy because that's what cable news
That's what we do. That's what we do. We thrive on that. And I wrote in my Forbes column over the weekend, I'm very comfortable with religion. I'm just not comfortable with people who want to politicize religion. And that's what we did immediately. And it irritated me to no end. I couldn't agree with you more, Rick.
Okay. Noah?
Well, we politicize certain religions. We politicize religions that have become majoritarian in this country, particularly denominations of Christianity. Catholicism is among them. Protestantism is among them. We have a sort of an aversion to politicizing, for example, Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism or Shintoism or Taoism. Well, you know what? Not really. He's sort of politicized the nature of having an individual occupy an office of a certain faith, but we wouldn't have a religious leader, an imam, an important imam, come into this country and then hold him up as somebody who is either to be reviled or to be respected and admired and emulated.
I'm actually not so sure about that, but we don't know.
I don't know if that's. I just don't see that as being the case.
I think reviled would probably be more the take on that, but well,
it depends on the commentator, I suppose.
Speaking of commentators, New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd couldn't resist criticizing the Pope over the Church's stance on not allowing women to serve as priests, while others went after His Holiness for highlighting global warming in his speech before Congress. So here's the question. Does the Pope have some sort of obligation to be consistent to the American audience as far as his views on things like global warming?
Just because the punditocracy wants him to be political doesn't mean he has to be consistent. Look, he is taking things and running them through the filter of his church. His church has certain dogma, and that is what he represents. Now, it's where he expands to inclusiveness and the way he handles some of these things that I think make this Pope so special. He's not arguing for abortion, for goodness sakes. What he is saying, though, is quit, kicking people aside because you don't agree with what they do. There's always room to bring them back into the faith. And I'm not a Catholic, but I admire anybody who takes that point of view. That's why I like this guy. He has no obligation to be politically consistent whatsoever.
Bill, was that the goal here, that obviously less Catholics going to church attendance down, bringing in a bigger tent, so therefore you have to acquiesce? Not totally, but be a little bit more liberal.
In business terms, this is a CEO.
I hear the churches were overflowing this
came to town and he's trying to drive membership in his organization. I think that's purely, honestly, why he came.
Did you go to church this weekend?
Oh, I go to church every weekend, so it had no impact on me.
Do you do the Saturday 5 o'clock Mass like I do sometimes, or more the Sunday?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning? Yeah. Good way to start off the Sunday before NFL football. Anyway, do you think the Pope was too political or just political enough? Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. I'm sure you will. Up next, France is stepping up its air attacks on ISIS. Wow, more on that in a moment.
Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. France has decided to step up its air attacks against the Islamic State, commencing an air raid against an ISIS training camp in eastern Syria yesterday. French President Francois Hollande announced that the successful mission had been necessitated by intelligence indicating that terror plots against his country, as well as others, were being hatched by ISIS. While France had previously participated in air attacks on the terrorist group in Iraq, yesterday's bombing was the first time the country had brought their air forces into play inside Syria. While France has promised that there will be future airstrikes against that terrorist organization, given what appears to be the limited success at best of American airstrikes in both Iraq and Syria, is there any reason to expect that the French attacks will have any greater impact, Bill, than the American attacks have?
Why not? This is one of the 7 signs of the apocalypse right here. And the fact that France has come out and is now the leader of the free world, or taking a leadership role in this, I don't know. I don't know, but why not?
I mean, Noah, do you see this as a strength in numbers scenario? That if there's more air attacks now, as we bring the France into the Syrian borders, it's going to make a difference?
I don't believe it's going to make a lot of difference. As far as the fight against ISIS goes, what's really sort of disturbing about this is the breakdown of the global order that has been predicated on that since World War II. What we're seeing now is powers executing airstrikes in this region, and not just in Syria, but in places like Libya with the United Arab Emirates and Egypt joining together. We have Russia and Iran working on the opposite side of this fight, supporting the Assad regime and surveying areas that are controlled by rebels, suggesting that we're both on opposite ends of this fight, and we're all in the same theater, working very closely together in the same operating space. That's a recipe for a really big disaster.
Speaking of Russia and Iran, which has become incredibly relevant, Iran has announced that it's reached a deal with both Russia and Syria to share intelligence in the fight against ISIS, a deal which apparently came as a total surprise to the United States intelligence community. Now, the agreement coming at a time when Russia is increasing its presence in Syria, ostensibly to help the government there fight the ISIL terrorist group. Should the U.S. be welcoming this pact, or should they be suspicious of it, Joe? This is a pretty weird thing that's happening here.
That's a rhetorical question, right?
Yeah,
I think that we're kind of happy about it, and we should welcome it, but we should also be suspicious.
Well, why are we
Because Russia
kinda
never
happy
has.
about it?
Russia's not doing this because they want to defeat ISIS completely, because that helps out America most and Western allies. They obviously have some sort of stake in this. So, yeah, I mean, sure, be suspicious, but when now you have Russia and France, this is what should be happening. The world should be coming together against this evil.
As Noah just pointed out, I would say very correctly, we actually have sides forming against this common enemy. How can that possibly be a good thing?
It's not a good thing. Russia is displacing the United States in this region. This has been doing so very aggressively for the last several years. It's reversing 40 years of American policy. And I mentioned the UAE, joint UAE-Egyptian strikes on Libya. That made news because the State Department, the White House, was never informed. It just happened, and we were told after the fact. Iraq now is executing geopolitical strategy with Moscow and not informing the White House. It's just a non-entity. The United States is being removed from this region, and it will have dire consequences in the very near term.
Although it's not just the United States, is it? You've got the alliance that the United States has set up with the European nations, but now you've got Russia joining with these Middle Eastern countries. Bill, you know, I'm gonna actually refer you to what Donald Trump has said, where he points out that, you know what, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe these guys are stepping in and doing the job for us, and if so, what's so terrible about that?
Well, what's so terrible about that is picking up on Noah's point. This happened without our knowledge. The sentence that you read, where this pact happened without us knowing about it, that these arrangements and these allyships are being formed without our knowledge, without us being informed. That's deeply disturbing, and that worries me as much as anything else, because it means we're losing control in the region. It doesn't mean order's happening.
But do we? And now this is getting somewhat rhetorical or devil's advocate. But Joe, is it important that we have control over the fight of ISIL, considering we're not doing a very good job of it anyhow? Is it important that we have control, or is it important that somebody step up and beat these guys?
We are the world's only superpower, and therefore we should be in control, always, in these situations. We have the most to lose, clearly. We've invested the most blood and tears in that region.
Well, we've also invested apparently millions and millions of dollars in training 9 people who actually handed over their weapons.
That's not true, Rick. It's up to 11.
It's 11 people. Yeah, that's nice. And they handed over their weapons to Al-Qaeda in the past few days when they were defeated. Maybe Russia should be doing this, Noah, because we're not doing it very well.
Right. The concern is the post-war order. Eventually, the fighting stops, and we have an order that is established in the region that is not westward-looking, but looking towards Moscow and Beijing.
Well,
and,
that's right.
That's something we don't want.
You put that extremely well. That's exactly the situation. Someday this resolves. And when it does, it's not going to be the United States, it looks like, who the world's going to be looking to take the leadership role, because we won't have fixed it. Very good point. What do you make of this new partnership with Iran, Russia, and Syria? Go to newsmax.com/comments to let your voice be heard. We very much want to know what you have to say about this. This is a very important issue. Coming up next, we read some of your viewer comments. You know it's fun.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Let's read some of your viewer comments. First up, we have some thoughts on Pope Francis. Here's one from Terry, who says, if the Pope is so concerned about refugees, tell him to take down his wall around Vatican City and let the Muslims move in with him. You want to discuss that one real quick? Is there really a wall around Vatican City? Once and for all?
There isn't. There's no wall to take down, sorry.
Okay, next.
Daniel says, Pope Francis, faith and morals associated with religion, infallible, science. Can you recall Galileo and politics, completely fallible? Did anybody understand that?
Galileo did.
I didn't understand what the comment was.
Oh, I got that. I got that part if you want to discuss it really quickly. The only thing infallible is mathematics. Science is fallible by its nature because it is a dialectic where you always constantly have to prove. And Galileo was the guy who said, whoops, you know what, we're not the center of the universe. We're actually revolving around something else that is more likely the center of things.
So in other words, that says the Pope's not infallible.
That all says the Pope
the Church was fallible,
totally fallible
in that instance.
Well, the Church says the Pope's infallible, though, right?
Right, in that particular instance.
Well, you can take it up with the Roman Catholics.
What do you think that thing is we're revolving around? That is Kanye West? Or?
Yeah, Kanye West. Definitely
Okay.
Kanye West.
Had to work that in somehow. Lowell says, and we quote, "The Pope is too liberal?" Question mark, question mark. So what political preference do you think Jesus would have supported? I think, if we could discuss this for a second, he's kind of a left of center guy if you're kind of on at least when it comes to taking care of the poor.
I claim no expertise on the topic, but that sounds right to me.
Really?
Of course it does. Well, no, when it comes to taking care of the poor, yeah, there's a constant reminder that the poor are always with us and that we have an obligation to take care of them. But I think when you look at the politics of the Church, you'd be hard-pressed to say that they are, quote-unquote, progressive policies.
So just like the Pope himself, Jesus has no requirement of being politically constant
exactly.
as we define the same because we're everything, right?
He would also probably find it a little ironic that the Church is headquartered in Rome.
Good point.
It's a great point, actually.
We also have some comments on some of the presidential candidates. The first one is about Donald Trump. I know, I'm shocked to hear that. James says, many are saying Donald Trump has a thin skin. True. I respectfully, not respectively, disagree. I believe Donald Trump wears three hats with equal skill: businessman, entertainer, promoter. At this time, he is wearing the promoter hat. Getting his name in front of the people so they are talking about Donald Trump is more important than what they are saying. A significant number of the voters do not study the issues or the qualifications of the individuals running for office. When they vote for the person who they know the best and have heard the most about. Donald Trump is counting on that factor. Well, aside from the fact that I feel like I should turn that over to my publisher for a book, none of that really speaks to the fact whether Donald Trump has a thin skin or not. I think everything you said in there is accurate, but he is thin-skinned. He can't take much of a punch without getting really nasty in his response.
Noah's got a big smile on his face. I say we go to him.
Businessman, entertainer, and promoter. Who does that sound like to you?
P.T. Barnum, baby.
Well, yes, that's true. But also Vince McMahon.
Oh.
He is the WWE candidate.
Yeah,
this is very much a giant work.
Interesting. Yeah. Why did the WWF go to the WWE? Was there
World Wildlife Fund?
We do not have time for that discussion.
Oh no, we have an answer quickly.
It was the World Wildlife Fund. It was a complete.
And they sued them, and they threatened.
Yes.
Okay, I was curious about that. I knew no one would have the answer. Okay,
I think you're right.
We'll look it up. Paul says neither Marco Rubio nor the other candidates have the mandatory basic know-how, negotiating skills, or the access to super talented people required to drive this nation forward. I wonder who he thinks does, Bill Tucker.
I don't know. I've been wondering ever since I saw that comment who the super talented people versus just the merely talented people.
That's true. I guess there's different levels of talent. There's Tom Brady, and then there's
everybody else.
Everybody else, sure. Rick, take over. Get us out.
I don't know what to say about that. I really don't.
Rick Reed.
Glenna says, I know the mainstream media is controlled by the government. Really? The government is corrupt, and so is the media. I believe everyone is afraid of Donald Trump because they cannot control him. It is not in their best interest for Trump to win.
Can I do a media analysis?
Who's your handler from the government? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, that's easy. No, I don't even want to go down that road.
What do you mean the mainstream media is controlled? We're part of the media. I have not heard from my government controller in a very long time.
I think what they were trying to say, to be totally honest, is that there is such a revolving door between government positions and then people going into the media and then going back into government positions.
Not so much.
Look, David Axelrod is in the media. Jay Carney is in the media. Dana Perino.
Let's talk about lobbyists. There you have a revolving door. Yeah, there's a few people who serve at the various highest parts of the government that we know their names, and they go into media. But do you really think that the mainstream media is controlled by government? Who in the government's in charge of us? I'm just curious.
And those were all campaign people.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are campaign nexus with the media that is definitely a bit incestuous. But there's a lot
your
of
handler,
on that.
Noah?
VJ.
VJ
President Jarrett, yeah.
Okay.
That's
I remember
contact.
Paul Begala.
President Jarrett.
Paul Begala was about to do an analysis, and he had to go to the State Department to get his talking points. And they actually have an email from the Hillary treasure trove saying that. And I think people hear those things and they say, "Oh, you're just getting your cues from the government." So I'm defending it on some level. Anyway, if you want to weigh in on any of the issues we talk about here in the show, be sure to send us your comments. We may even read some on the air. We just did that. And be sure to get your copy of Dr. Carson's New York Times best-selling book, One Nation: What We Can All Do to Save America's Future, by going to Newsmax.com/Ben or calling 1-800-485-4350. Yay or nay? That's next. It's happy time, people. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, a new Gallup poll shows 79% of Americans say Congress is out of touch with the average American, while 52% say Congress is corrupt outright. Wow. With the possible government shutdown just days away, the poll shows many Americans having little faith in lawmakers doing the right thing. Congress's approval rating, by the way, lower than Rick's with people who send us comments to the show. Just 14%. Oh, no. Will Congress ever win back the hearts and minds of the American public?
Well, my favorite part of this is they always say, 70 whatever percent of people hate Congress, but not my congressman.
Exactly.
My congressman is awesome. And everybody says that about their congressman, but everybody else's is bad.
It's the Dennis Rodman rule. Yeah. Everybody hates Dennis Rodman until Dennis Rodman
plays
comes to
your team.
It's a 90s analogy, but I'm going to make this work. 90% of congressmen or women get reelected in their districts.
98.
Is it 98? Is it that high?
We hate them, but we send them back every time.
Why?
And then we
I
can't
don't know, because we hate them.
why Congress doesn't work.
But we're just not getting candidates, good candidates. Is it gerrymandering? Give me something deeper.
I don't have anything deeper on that. He said we don't look.
People like their own
I know Rick's name. I'm going to vote for him. That's right. But I'm going to
or he's on the blue team or on the red team. I vote for the team. So,
I vote team. So we're going with the team.
Interesting. You ever going to run for office, Noah?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
I don't have that. Well, because I'm not a masochist. Generally like my position. I'm going to be a bit of a gloomy Gus on this one because that poll showed this consistently, but institutions that are most favored, the presidency, the military, and the police. Least favored institutions are all Republican institutions, representatives in Congress. And then you have like
bankers,
the church and small business, which is generally supported. So I'm just a little uncomfortable in a constitutional republic.
The numbers were not much better, if any better, when the Democrats were in control of Congress. So.
Democrats in Congress rate a little bit higher, I think, than Republicans in Congress.
But the body itself was really still pretty...
it's terrible.
Prickly heat's more popular, no matter who's in control.
Anybody who loves their freedom and their Republican background should be a little wary about all these executive authority figures having the most faith and the most trust in the public. That's a little worrying.
We'll transition out of that. Next, one congressman who attended Pope Francis' address in D.C. last week decided to be holier than thou and take the holy glass of water the pontiff drank for him and his wife. It's true. Pennsylvania Democrat, of course it was a Democrat, Bob Brady, just walked up and took the glass last Thursday, and plenty of people noticed. Brady brought the glass back to his office, and he and his wife, along with two staffers, drank from it. He then asked, "How many people do you know that drank out of the same glass as the Pope?" He plans to pour the rest of the water into a bottle and will use it to bless his grandkids. Here's your question. Did the congressman break the thou shalt not steal commandment, yay or nay?
I don't know if he broke the thou shalt not steal commandment, but he definitely broke the thou shalt not catch a cold from an important guy who is here visiting us and doesn't seem to have much of a grip on what constitutes holy water.
For a guy who's not Catholic, that's true. No, he didn't steal it, but he broke that thou shalt not be weird.
That's a little strange, right?
In front of other people.
Yeah, and everybody caught him. That's the best part. Noah?
Yeah, just very creepy. I don't know. Maybe he thinks he has some papal life force in him now, so he's going to be stronger at the polls this time next year. I don't know.
It's interesting. There's a South Park episode where Cartman actually drank Kenny's ashes.
Yeah.
And then Kenny was a ghost living inside of him, and he said, "Shut up, Kenny!" He kept talking. Anyway, I'll have to get that clip sometime. Anyway, finally, Planned Parenthood protesters thought it would be a really good idea to get their point across by tossing condoms at Carly Fiorina supporters. The condom kerfuffle happened in Iowa during a college football game tailgate. The protesters were dressed in pink and waved pink pom-poms as they followed around the tailgate, Fiorina that is, chanting, Carly Fiorina offsides for telling lies. Is that supposed to rhyme? Anyway, Carly supporters fired the rhetoric back. Iowa will go on to win 62-14, which has nothing to do with this story. Will Fiorina's passionate stance against Planned Parenthood help or hurt her in the general election if she becomes the nominee? Yea or nay, Unger?
It'll hurt her in the general, help her in the primary, but I got to give her credit. She stood up nose to nose with the woman who was arguing with her.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt her at all. I don't think it's going to help her either.
No?
Yeah, neutral.
Neutral. Boy, we don't bring you on the show to be neutral.
Yay and nay.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yay.
Really yay.
Thank you. We don't call it
Yay.
neutral or nay. We call it yay or nay. Anyway, that's all for tonight. I'm Joe Concha on behalf of our panel, our definitive one. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Rick Unger. Steve Malzberg, that's next.